information, the website is www.stepbystep.ca, or you can contact George at the Victoria Inn in Brandon. That's our show. Thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you tomorrow morning. George.
Canada. George Marcello is a liver transplant recipient and is now trying to save lives from coast to coast. Tonight, Shelley Brown tells us how.
Step by step, George Marcello is walking across Canada. This is the 248th day of Marcello's 500-day walk. His message is simple: to raise awareness and educate the public about the critical shortage of organ and tissue donations in Canada.
She's carried the torch all the way through Regina so far, and she is going to pass it to you, and you are going to be the 136th person to receive the torch in so many cities.
Marcello's life changed forever in 1992 when he learned he had a life-threatening liver disease. He was put on a waiting list.
I was told at that point that I only had 2 days left to live, and my only hope was an organ transplant.
George was lucky. Too many Canadians needing a transplant have died waiting. People like Blair Schwarzenberger. The 36-year-old Saskatoon resident was on life support after suffering a massive heart attack in January, desperately needing a heart transplant.
You know, what's at stake here is lives, and future lives. So what we're trying to do is promote a very positive spirit. We're letting every Canadian from coast to coast know about the benefits and importance of becoming an organ donor.
Marcello took his message to the provincial government.
Welcome to Saskatchewan.
Health Minister John Nielsen accepted the torch, saying while Saskatchewan has the highest rate of organ donations in Canada in 1998, at 22 donors per million people, we can't afford to be complacent. Marcello's journey continues. He'll spend the next 2 weeks in Saskatchewan. Expects to end his journey with the commitment from all Canadians to sign their organ donor cards by the time he ends his trek in January 2002 back in Toronto. Shelley Brown, Global News, Regina.
You're watching Global News with
Millions. The RCMP lives. George Marcello arrived in Regina today, halfway through a 500-day walk across Canada. CTV's Aaron Klein shows us why he's on this cross-country trek.
On behalf of Saskatchewan, we're happy to pass it on to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
George Marcello is passing on a flame of awareness. Marcello is walking across Canada raising awareness to the importance of organ donation.
Foremost is that people will think about becoming organ donors, think about the importance, and also that they're going to discuss this with their family. That's very, very important also.
Marcello knows a little something about the importance of transplants. He received a life-saving liver transplant in 1992. In 1998, Saskatchewan had the highest rate of organ donation in Canada, with 22 donors per 1 million people. Provincial Health Minister John Nielsen believes residents can do better, and it starts with people like Marcello.
Each person you have educated and convinced to sign an organ donor card may potentially save the lives of 6 other people. If we look at it that way, we can see the tremendous impact that George Marcello has made in people's lives across our country.
Marcello will visit 491 cities and towns across Canada. He also hopes to take his odyssey to London and Rome. But that's later. For now, he just wants to get out of the cold.
Kind of looking forward to get through this winter. It's been pretty tough and cruel, I think a little bit of insanity runs in my blood, so...
So Marcello knows there's nothing crazy about raising public awareness to the value of organ donations. Aaron Klein, CTV News, Regina.
The 6 organs that can be transplanted include the heart, kidneys, pancreas, lungs, liver, and intestines, in addition to 5 other types of human tissue. If you would like more information about any of this, you can call this number, 1-800-667-7551.
And we're heading up now to Pilot Butte where Tom...
And should we ask for you? Will you be there?
Right, our next story. Wisconsin man has been given the opportunity to have his sentence cut by a judge saying he could wear a sign reading, "I stole from the families of the dead." Daniel Pinnell was given the option from a judge pleading guilty to taking around $350 from memorial cards at the Eau Claire Funeral Home where he worked.
You know, this guy sounds like a lawyer to me, Timmy.
I don't know. Hey, he could be a lawyer, right?
Full of tragedies, and this morning we're hearing about two men who lost their lives on the Trans-Canada, and out of that, you know, there is the possibility of life. Not to sound cold and callous this morning, but that's what we're going to talk about. It's a sensitive issue, but a very important issue. From someone dying, from someone losing their life, they can give life to other people, and that is called donating your organs and tissue. What we're talking about this morning is just that, and then we're talking about a very impressive man who is with me in the studio. You may have heard of him. You may have heard about him on our newscast today and certainly yesterday. George Marcello is with me in studio, and George, welcome to the show. Welcome to Saskatchewan.
Thank you, and good morning, Regina.
Now, a little bit of background about George. He's a 45-year-old who has survived a liver transplant. George, you've been walking across Canada. In fact, you walked across to Ontario. You've done a lot of walking. And we're going to talk about your views on the state of organ donation and tissue donation in Canada, why you're doing this. I mean, you've got to have a reason, a lot of spirit for doing this. And certainly we want to hear from some people this morning on their opinion about it, especially if you out there, a friend, a family, a relative who has gone through the process of waiting for a transplant. And we'll talk about that and much more, and simply find out a little bit more about this man who's among the people we see coming through Regina, I think, and walking across Canada for many different causes. George Marcello, to me, seems to be a little bit different. Great dedication, great enthusiasm, and great energy. So I think it's important that we find out why he's doing this, a bit about George, your chance to talk to him one-on-one, simply congratulate him if you care, and to talk about the issues surrounding signing your donor card, either the one that comes with your license, one you can get, having that in your will, carrying one with you, and all of that. And first of all, George, you have to ask the question, why in winter? Why do the walk in winter?
Actually, it's Premier Harris's fault. He changed his schedule on us. We were, I'm not saying that in a bad way, of course. We were scheduled to kick off the walk in March, and you know, we were planning to have the Premier there in March, and just something came up and he couldn't make it in March, so we put it off till June. And by that time we already had the route set up, so if we would have started March, I would have been in BC by now, you know, not going through the school bar, but you know, I'm getting an education about your winter out here in the prairies.
All right, and as well, you're on a 500-day walk across Canada. You won't be walking directly across the country, but you're covering sections of it. We'll talk a little bit about that. And this is day 249, must be, because yesterday was 248. So this morning, a chance for you to meet and talk to George Marcello. Organ donation and tissue donation has become his passion. He is a liver transplant survivor himself. In 1992, you were told you were going to die. It took you, I think, 3 years to get a transplant. There in itself is a story. So this morning at 936-9898 in town, long distance toll free, 1-800-409-3980, out where it counts. So we're going to talk with George Marcello, who co-founded Step by Step, Organ Transplant Association, diagnosed with terminal liver disease in '92, received a liver transplant operation in 1995, and we want to hear from you this morning as well. And if you don't like the idea of organ transplants or organ donations, or you have some misconceptions about it, I'm sure George will set you straight, and we'll talk about the impact on families and why this has become a national issue, not just a provincial one.